You set your alarm for 6 a.m., telling yourself today is finally the day you'll start that workout, that side hustle, that one thing you've been putting off for way too long. You even went to bed early, trying to set yourself up for a fresh start. But when the alarm goes off, something shifts. You hit snooze. You scroll your phone. You feel that familiar wave of guilt, but you tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. And deep down, you already know tomorrow's going to feel exactly like today. It's frustrating. It's confusing. And it keeps happening, even when you really want to change. Most of us think we just need more willpower. We blame ourselves, thinking we're lazy or undisciplined. But what's really happening is something deeper. It's called self-sabotage. It happens when your thoughts, your habits, or even your emotions quietly start working against your own goals. And it's usually not loud or obvious. It shows up in hesitation, in distractions, in the subtle ways you pull back, right when it's time to move forward. It's like one part of you is hitting the brakes, while another part keeps pressing the gas. And the hardest part? Most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. Before we continue with the video, I want to remind you, if you're working on becoming your best self, go ahead and subscribe. This video's for you, and there's more coming that you will not want to miss. Now back to the video. Self-sabotage doesn't always look like giving up. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism, endlessly tweaking something so you never have to finish. Sometimes it's overthinking every decision until you're paralyzed by doubt. Other times, it's filling your day with low-priority tasks so you can avoid the one thing that actually matters. It can even show up as busyness, staying in motion just enough to feel productive without actually making progress. And if you've ever set a goal, gotten excited, and then somehow talked yourself out of even trying, that's the pattern in action. It's quiet, it's sneaky, and it's more common than most people realize. Once you start to see the pattern, the next question is, why? Why would we keep getting in our own way when we actually want to grow? Your mind doesn't care about your goals. It cares about your comfort. Its job is to protect you, to keep you safe. So when something feels unfamiliar, risky, or even just different from your routine, your brain treats it like a threat, even if it's something good. So you get resistance. You feel tension. You hesitate, not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to pull you back to what feels familiar. Even if that familiar space is keeping you stuck. It's a defense mechanism. And the more change feels like danger, the more self-sabotage shows up to shield you from it. Now, if you've ever wondered why your brain reacts this way, why progress feels uncomfortable even when you want it, the answer often lies in your past. Because for many of us, self-sabotage didn't start as sabotage. It started as self-protection. Maybe you grew up in an environment where failure wasn't safe, where trying something new meant being judged, criticized, or ignored. Maybe you learned that the only way to be accepted was to succeed, to be perfect, or to never show weakness. Or maybe every time you got your hopes up, life knocked you back down, so you taught yourself not to expect too much. Over time, your brain started associating growth with danger and safety with staying small. So now, as an adult, the moment you try to change, those old messages come rushing back. Not good enough. Don't get too confident. Play it safe. Even if you don't hear those words out loud anymore, the beliefs still live in your behavior. And the thing is, you don't have to be fully aware of those beliefs for them to affect you, because most of the time, the cycle plays out without you even realizing it's happening. It usually begins with a clear intention. You decide you're ready to make a change, and for a moment, it feels real. There's a quiet confidence, a sense that maybe this time you'll actually follow through. But as soon as you begin moving toward it, that familiar resistance creeps in. Doubt shows up. Overwhelm starts to build. And sometimes, even when you're doing well, a little voice whispers, "Who do you think you are?" That's imposter syndrome, and it's one of the most common ways self-sabotage hides in plain sight. Because if you start believing you're not ready, not qualified, or not good enough to succeed, You'll subconsciously start doing things that pull you off track, just to avoid being exposed or judged. So you delay. You tell yourself you need more time, more research, more validation. That delay turns into avoidance, and pretty soon, the guilt sets in. You start beating yourself up for not following through, which drains your energy even more. Eventually, you give up, or you tell yourself you'll try again next week, next month, when life feels less busy. Motivation, hesitation, guilt, delay, and then the cycle reset. It's exhausting, but it's also familiar, and that's exactly why it's so hard to break. And while this pattern can feel frustrating, or even permanent, it's important to understand that it's not set in stone. Because once you begin to notice the cycle, not just in hindsight but as it's happening, you create the space to choose something different. Now, for some people, this is the point where they give up. Not just on a goal, but on themselves. They've tried to change so many times before, and each attempt ended in the same loop of resistance, guilt, and disappointment. Eventually, it just feels easier to stop trying than to keep starting over. But just because it hasn't worked in the past doesn't mean it can't work now, especially if you stop relying on willpower alone and instead start shifting how you respond to the pattern itself. You won't flip a switch overnight, and you don't need to. But even a small interruption in the pattern can start to loosen its grip. The key isn't to wait for motivation or clarity. It's to take small, grounded actions before the sabotage has a chance to take over. So if willpower isn't the answer, and motivation keeps disappearing the moment you need it most, then what actually works? So here's how you start breaking the cycle, no pressure, just a few small steps that actually work. Step 1. Catch the pattern in real time. Most people only recognize self-sabotage after it's already done the damage. But change starts when you catch yourself in the moment, when you notice the urge to delay, distract, or quit. That's your signal. Not a failure, just a flag that says, you're at the edge of growth. Step 2. Interrupt the loop with a small action. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't try to fix the whole problem. Just take one small action right away. Something quick, doable, and tied to the thing you're resisting. Open the file, press record, walk outside. When you move, even just a little, you break the mental grip of self-sabotage. Step 3. Make the wrong thing harder to do. Self-sabotage thrives on ease and familiarity. So create a little friction between you and your fallback habit. Put your phone in another room. Log out of distractions. Schedule what matters first. When bad habits become harder to reach, good habits become easier to choose. Step 4. Change the story you're repeating. This might be the hardest part, but it's the one that lasts. Your actions won't stick if your identity stays the same. So start replacing the old narrative. Instead of saying, "I always mess this up," say, "I'm someone learning to follow through." Instead of, "I'm not good enough," say, "I'm becoming someone who shows up anyway." It might not feel true at first, but the more you live like it's true, the more real it starts to feel. Change doesn't happen just because you want it. It happens when you're willing to respond differently, again and again, even on the days when it would be easier to slip back into what's familiar. Self-sabotage isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that some part of you is still trying to protect yourself the only way it knows how. But you're not that version of you anymore. You're growing. You're learning. You're becoming someone who shows up, one small decision at a time. And that's how real change begins. Not with perfection. Not with motivation. But with one clear choice to stop getting in your own way. If this spoke to something you've been battling quietly, save this video and come back to it when the pattern shows up again, because every time you recognize it, you take a little more power away from it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and drop a comment below sharing how self-sabotage shows up in your life, and what you're doing to break the cycle. See you in the next video.